Little Rock, Arkansas, in the late 1970s, a city still bearing deep traces of the civil rights era. Here stands Jefferson High School, a public school with a long, tumultuous history. The name Jefferson evokes ideals of freedom and equality, yet the day-to-day realities often reveal social contradictions and lingering prejudice. Along the school's hallways hang old photographs featuring mostly white students, with the occasional black student standing on the sidelines, reflecting the gradual integration that came after civil rights movements. Over the years, the number of black students has grown, but the biases of the past have not disappeared overnight. Jefferson High is built of dull red brick with wooden window frames whose paint has chipped away over time. At the back of the campus lies a large football field, an icon of school pride and the center for weekend games that draw community crowds. Next to the field is a separate block of buildings dedicated to music and the arts, informally known as the Jefferson Arts Wing. This arts wing is tucked away from the main classroom buildings, symbolizing how the school prioritizes sports above artistic endeavors. Inside one of these older practice rooms stands an upright piano, rarely used except by a few affluent white students who have the means for private lessons. On a cloudy October day, Benjamin Carter, a quiet black junior, sits by the window in his American history class. 16 years old and lean, Benjamin has dark brown skin and bright, inquisitive eyes. He usually wears a loose plaid shirt, black jeans, and worn-out sneakers. Sometimes he adds a battered leather jacket to ward off the chilly drafts that blow through the hallways. Though his outward appearance suggests timidity, he harbors a resilient spirit inside, shaped by the lessons his mother taught him about keeping his head low to avoid trouble in a place that rarely welcomes students like him. At the back of the classroom, Aiden Hayes, the only student openly friendly to Benjamin, throws him a discreet thumbs up now and then. Aiden is white, with curly brown hair, a slight build, and a penchant for rock band t-shirts paired with a gray hoodie. Coming from a working-class family, Aiden understands something about being overlooked, though not to the same extent as Benjamin. He does his best to offer silent support whenever he senses Benjamin's unease. Yet the real tension in this history class emanates from the teacher herself, Ms. Annabelle Thompson, who has taught at Jefferson for nearly 20 years. In her 50s, she's tall and thin, her salt and pepper hair meticulously tied back, and she often wears dark pencil skirts, a slim jacket, high heels, and gold-rimmed glasses. Her expression typically remains stern, unless she's displeased. Then her eyebrows narrow sharply. Many of her white students see her as a knowledgeable and disciplined figure. However, her treatment of black students has long been distant at best. She is polite enough but keeps them at arm's length. That morning, Benjamin tries hard to concentrate on a chapter about the American Civil War. While many classmates complain about the reading, Benjamin finds the subject fascinating, especially the era's intense struggles around slavery and the subsequent fight for freedom. He sees these historical events as linked to his personal heritage. From the front of the room, Ms. Thompson flips through her grade book, the quiet hum of the overhead lights blending with the creak of a ceiling fan. Then she looks up and addresses the class. "Benjamin," she says in a clear, firm tone, "could you share a few details about General Sherman's march during the Civil War?" Heads turn, surprise flickers across several faces. Benjamin seldom gets called on, despite always raising his hand. Aiden glances over, his eyebrows raised as if asking, "Did we just hear that right?" Benjamin swallows hard, takes a deep breath, and steadies himself. He remembers reading about Sherman's march to the sea the previous night. Calming his nerves, he offers, "Well, Ms. Thompson, General William Tecumseh Sherman's march to the sea occurred late in 1864. It was aimed at destroying the South's infrastructure and supply lines, weakening both their economy and morale." He proceeds steadily, each sentence revealing that he truly understands the content. A hush falls over the class. Even the students who usually ignore him look mildly impressed by his knowledge. When he finishes, Ms. Thompson gives a slight nod, but her tone is indifferent. That's acceptable. No praise, no encouragement. Despite his perfect answer, her expression suggests a reassessment. as if she's actually disappointed that he didn't fail. Benjamin merely presses his lips together in a faint smile. He's used to this apathy. But at that moment, a new tension arises. Her gaze lingers on him a second longer than usual, almost as if to say, "We expected you to slip up." Ms. Thompson flips another page in her gradebook. The pen in her hand scratches the paper audibly as she makes a note. Then she looks at the class with what appears to be a forced, calculated smile. "Class, tomorrow we'll have a brief extracurricular session. I've heard that Benjamin's grandfather is some kind of piano player. Wouldn't it be nice if you gave us a little show, Benjamin? You could play for the class." A ripple of whispers spreads across the room. Benjamin stares at Ms. Thompson, realizing this isn't a friendly invitation. It's a trap, a challenge, a bet that he'll fail. She clearly expects him to embarrass himself and confirm whatever stereotypes she holds. Aiden nudges him from the side, whispering, "They've never cared about your talents before. Why would they now?" Benjamin just meets Ms. Thompson's cold gaze, then replies, "Sure, I'll do it." For the briefest moment, Ms. Thompson's smile deepens. It's not a smile of genuine pleasure. It's the look of someone who believes they've already won. But she is wrong. That afternoon, the final bell rings. Benjamin slips through the school gate into a drizzly, overcast sky. The asphalt road outside is worn and cracked, dotted with puddles. Several battered yellow school buses idle, ready to ferry students to the outskirts of the city. Across the street, there's a modest row of shops and fast food joints where many white students gather to hang out. A group of them, wearing trendy jeans and bright t-shirts, pass by Benjamin as if he's invisible. Aiden jogs after him. "Ben, wait up!" He catches his breath, adjusting his backpack. Benjamin forces a smile as Aiden catches up. "Are you okay? About what Ms. Thompson said, do you need my help practicing or something?" Benjamin shakes his head. "I'll manage. I don't really have a choice, do I?" Aiden nods uneasily, the concern obvious in his eyes. Together, they head toward the eastern working-class neighborhood of Little Rock, lined with run-down houses and peeling fences. They hurry past a few deserted lots and smoke-shrouded corners where idle teenagers hang out. Despite having lived there his whole life, Benjamin can still feel the wary stares that follow him, and sometimes Aiden, through these streets. At last, they reach Benjamin's home, a single-story house of cream-colored bricks with chipped paint and a tiny front yard planted with a few rose bushes. On the small wooden porch, a second-hand bench stands next to the door. Mrs. Etta Carter, Benjamin's mother, sits there knitting. She is in her early 40s, slim and gentle-faced, though her eyes often reflect worry. Seeing Benjamin, she smiles warmly. "Welcome home, Ben. Is something bothering you? You look tense." Wasting no time, Benjamin explains Ms. Thompson's plan for him to perform piano in class. Mrs. Etta sets aside her knitting, absorbing his words. "Do you want me to talk to her so you can avoid this?" Remembering her long-standing advice, the more attention you attract, the more reason they'll find to hate you. Benjamin hesitates, then answers, "No, I won't back down. I have to prove them wrong." His mother studies him carefully, seeing the new determination etched on his face. "All right, if you've made up your mind, I support you." Dinner at the Carter's house. That evening, the steady rain continues. Benjamin and his mother sit at their small dining table in a humble but tidy kitchen. His father passed away in a traffic accident when Benjamin was little, so Mrs. Etta has raised him alone, juggling multiple odd jobs to keep the house in order. A lone overhead light bathes the room in a soft glow, illuminating a few old family photos on the walls. One of them shows his grandfather, Moses Carter, in a fine suit, posed by a piano in some distant jazz club. "Your grandpa was quite the pianist in his day," Mrs. Etta reminisces. "He toured the South playing jazz and supporting civil rights rallies until his health gave out." Benjamin chews his food quietly, recalling nights spent in his grandfather's living room, listening to him coax beautiful melodies from a battered upright piano. As a child, he had laid his hands on the keys with wonder, and Grandpa Moses would patiently guide his fingers, always praising his natural sense of rhythm. Now, with tomorrow's performance looming, Benjamin feels nerves coiling inside him. Fears of failing in front of Miss Thompson, letting his mother or grandpa down, swirl in his mind. Yet another part of him burns with determination to show that he is more than their narrow expectations. I'm going to practice a bit before bed, he says, setting down his fork. Mrs. Etta simply nods. Go on, son, you can do this. 3 blocks away stands the small home of Benjamin's grandfather, Moses Carter. Though it's late, Benjamin huddles under a worn umbrella and trudges through the rain. The street lamps cast a faint glow on the slick roads, and insects chirp in the damp night air. Eventually, he reaches his grandfather's house, a cozy 1-story building with a few framed jazz posters on its walls and a warm light emanating from the window. He knocks softly. A deep, gravelly voice answers. Is that you, Ben? Come on in. Moses Carter, in his 70s, has white hair and a frail figure, but his eyes remain bright and lively. He leans on a cane to walk. Inside, the living room is neat and snug, lit by a single floor lamp. In the corner stands his old upright piano, a dusty but cherished piece of family history. Several photographs adorn the walls, including pictures of jazz legends like Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. Benjamin sinks onto the couch, explaining the whole situation. Moses listens intently, brows furrowing in concern. Your teacher wants you to play for the class? Yes, she probably just wants a chance to humiliate me, but I won't give her that. Moses rubs his chin thoughtfully, then a proud smile lifts the corners of his mouth. You'll be all right, Ben. Don't let others decide your worth. Talent like yours speaks for itself. You can be afraid of stumbling, but never doubt that genuine gifts, especially music, can't be denied. He gestures for Benjamin to join him at the piano. Moses slowly sits down, placing his cane aside and lifting the piano lid. Come, sit. Benjamin obeys, feeling the night's chill replaced by a comforting warmth. Moses starts playing a slow, mellow jazz piece, rich in blues chords. His gnarled hands glide across the keys with surprising dexterity. Though he's old and tired, each note still resonates with passion. Soon he pauses and encourages Benjamin to continue the melody. Try to carry on this line, Ben. With trembling fingers, Benjamin begins to improvise, bridging classical chords with jazzy flourishes, breathing in the spirit of the music. Initially clumsy, he gradually loses himself in the rhythms. The old house seems to glow with the harmony they create together. When they finish, Moses pats his grandson's shoulder. Good, good. Remember, when you play music, let go of fear. It's just you and the notes. That advice steels Benjamin. He practices a while longer, then heads home through the drizzle, no longer dreading tomorrow's test. He knows what he must do. Dawn breaks, and the rain has stopped, though the sky remains overcast and chilly. Benjamin arrives early at school, slipping into the seldom-used music room in the Jefferson Arts Wing to familiarize himself with the upright piano he'll be using. It's an old black upright with peeling paint. Some of the keys are stiff and produce a dull sound, but it's workable. While he is warming up, the door opens, and a petite white teacher, Miss Caroline Wilson, the school's vocal instructor, walks in. She's wearing a cream-colored cardigan, her short brown curls framing a gentle face. Hello, you must be Benjamin Carter. I'm Miss Wilson, the choir and vocal teacher here. Benjamin nods. She approaches with a friendly smile. I heard you'll be performing for Ms. Thompson's class today. Feel free to practice as much as you want. The piano may be old, but it still sings if you treat it kindly. Unlike the aloofness of other teachers, Miss Wilson's kindness puts Benjamin somewhat at ease. She asks softly, Have you studied piano with anyone besides the school? Private lessons? My grandpa taught me, he replies. He played jazz professionally long ago. Her face brightens. Jazz? That's wonderful. Are you planning a jazz piece? Benjamin shrugs. I might do a bit of jazz with a touch of classical. My grandpa taught me both. Miss Wilson beams. That sounds amazing. Break a leg, Benjamin. Their brief exchange buoys his spirits. Even though Miss Thompson's invite is clearly a setup, it reassures him that he at least has some adult support, someone who believes in him besides Aiden. When history class starts, the atmosphere is markedly different. Everyone's talking about Benjamin Carter playing piano, passing jokes and smirks around. Ms. Thompson enters, her heels clicking on the tile floor, and places her grade book on the desk. As discussed, she announces in her dry, clipped tone, we'll spend a few minutes listening to Benjamin Carter's piano talents, and then return to our Civil War unit. Her emphasis drips sarcasm, and a few of the rich white kids snicker under their breath. Aiden glances over at Benjamin, silently mouthing, You ready? Benjamin steels himself and stands. The room goes quiet. Under Ms. Thompson's watchful eye, the class follows Benjamin down the hallway to the music room. Rows of chairs are set up for choir practice, and the upright piano stands on a small platform at the front. A flutter of whispers breaks the hush as students settle. Ms. Thompson remains at the back, arms folded, gaze cold. Benjamin takes a seat at the piano. Silence presses in. Aiden sits in the front row, giving an encouraging smile. Ms. Thompson's voice cuts through. We're waiting, Benjamin. Show us what you can do. He rests his fingers on the keys. Benjamin's heart pounds, but he recalls Grandpa Moses's words. Forget the fear. It's just you and the notes. Inhaling slowly, he strikes the opening chords. He begins with a classical prelude, derived from old lessons with his grandfather. Slow, poised, reflective. Each note resonates in the stillness, giving the moment a hushed sense of reverence. As he continues, the melody segues into a jazz progression, weaving in seventh chords and melodic improvisations that float with a subtle swing. Gradually, he loosens up, letting the music take him. The room is so silent you could hear a pin drop. A couple of students who had expected a dull or clumsy performance now stare wide-eyed. It's one thing to hear about his piano skills, but quite another to hear him blend classical elegance with a soulful jazz flavor that resonates with passion. In the middle section, he introduces a jazz blues motif, sprinkling blue notes to highlight the yearning and sorrow that define the form. In that moment, Benjamin's timid demeanor dissolves, replaced by an intense focus and confidence that enthralls the listeners. Each phrase flows seamlessly into the next, every chord tinted with longing and hope. By the time he plays the final chord, the entire room remains stunned. A few seconds pass before Aiden starts clapping, and soon others join in, generating an enthusiastic applause. It is real appreciation, not the pity applause some might have expected. Benjamin stands breathless and gives a polite bow. For the first time, he feels seen, truly seen. Among the onlookers, Ms. Thompson lingers, face taut, almost as if trying to hide her confusion. She had anticipated his failure. Now she's forced to consider the possibility that she'd misjudged him. Clearing her throat, she says, "Yes, well, back to class." Reluctantly, the students file out, more than a few with lingering glances of admiration for Benjamin. Aiden rushes up to him. "That was amazing. You really knocked it out of the park." Benjamin smiles, relief mingling with pride. He has passed their test and kept his dignity. He wonders if Ms. Thompson will ever see him the same way again. Word of Benjamin's impressive piano performance spreads quickly through Jefferson High. Many students, curious, approach him for conversation, praising his unexpected skill. Even a few who once paid him no mind start to say hello. A group of rock music enthusiasts invites him to jam with them on piano during lunch. But prejudice doesn't vanish overnight. In the teacher's lounge, Mr. Marcus Campbell, a geography instructor with conservative views, hears about Benjamin's success and reacts with a sneer. "So the kid played some notes on a piano. Big deal. Doesn't mean he's some genius." Ms. Thompson, flipping through papers, simply adds, "I'll admit he has some skill. But skill alone? A single performance isn't going to change everything." They seem to agree that Benjamin's performance is more of a fluke than a sign of deeper talent. Mr. Campbell even mutters, "These black kids can be flashy with their little improvisations. Let's see how long it lasts." Meanwhile, Benjamin keeps to his routine, turning in assignments on time, raising his hand in class. He doesn't expect any real praise from most teachers, but he no longer longs for it. After all, he has proven, if only to himself, that the opinions of a few biased adults won't define him. However, tensions begin to mount from another angle. Some affluent white students are displeased with the attention Benjamin is receiving. One standout is Bradley Cooper, star quarterback of the football team and son of a well-connected businessman in Little Rock. Tall, blonde, and arrogant, Bradley mocks Benjamin publicly. "So people are obsessed with this piano boy now? Jazz is just cheap noise to me." Bradley and his clique often pass him in the hallway, whispering snide remarks. Aiden tries to intervene whenever they go too far, but Bradley enjoys a privileged status at school, so it's risky to confront him. A storm is brewing, one that might test Benjamin's resolve even more severely. A week after Benjamin's in-class performance, Miss Wilson excitedly announces a citywide event, the Multicultural Music Contest, hosted by the Little Rock Cultural Association. The competition aims to showcase musical talents from diverse backgrounds, encouraging local high school students to sign up. Miss Wilson tells her class, "This is a fantastic opportunity to share your music with a broader audience. Jefferson High usually sends a choir or a rock band, but this year I'd like to suggest something different." Her gaze finds Benjamin, sitting quietly at the back. Several students turn to stare. Benjamin's heart thumps. The last thing he wants is more unwanted attention. But Miss Wilson's hopeful expression is hard to dismiss. After class, she pulls him aside. "I know you might feel pressured, but you have talent, Ben. I believe you could represent us well. Don't let fear or prejudice hold you back." Benjamin hesitates. If he enters and loses, Ms. Thompson and others like her will have even more ammunition to criticize him. If he wins or places well, it might shatter their preconceptions. Her sincerity, however, makes him think twice. But just then, Bradley catches wind of the news and jeers. "You gonna try your luck at that competition, piano boy? Bet you can't even get through the prelims." His taunts sting. Aiden steps in to diffuse the tension, but Bradley's words sink in. That night, Benjamin wrestles with doubt. He discusses it at home with his mother and grandfather. Mrs. Etta looks at him, anxious yet proud. "If you want to compete, I'll support you, but be ready for the stress." Grandpa Moses smiles. "Ben, music is your calling. You might not change the whole world, but you can sure change yourself. Go out there and shine." Their encouragement spurs him on. The next day, Benjamin tells Miss Wilson, "I'll do it." The Multicultural Music Contest is 3 weeks away. Benjamin needs to prepare a 5-7-minute piece that fuses classical elements with jazz, perfect for his style. Every afternoon after class, he practices in the Jefferson Arts Wing, but obstacles appear at every turn. First, certain teachers, like Mr. Campbell, start piling on extra homework and projects, forcing Benjamin to juggle limited time. Ms. Thompson also seems annoyed. "You're really going to represent our school? Surprising. Well, good luck, Mr. Carter." She says good luck in a mocking tone, but Benjamin refuses to argue. He'll let his music speak for itself. Second, the rumor mill churns out claims that he's nothing but a jazz noodler with no real technique, or that he plagiarizes well-known piano pieces. Bradley, of course, fans these rumors. Some students believe them, adding to the tension. Moreover, the upright piano in the arts wing is in poor shape, sticky keys, loose strings. Miss Wilson does her best to maintain it, but the budget is tight. Benjamin often has to press hard to get clear notes. One evening, while practicing alone, the old wooden bench cracks beneath him. He lands painfully on the floor, knocking his wrist against the piano's edge. "Ugh!" He clutches his wrist, pain radiating through his arm. Hearing the crash, Miss Wilson rushes in. "Oh my God, Ben, are you hurt?" His wrist is scraped and swollen but not broken. Still, the mishap terrifies him. What if he had seriously injured his hand? He sits on the floor, tears of frustration welling up. "I can't keep doing this. Everything's working against me." Miss Wilson helps him up and dresses his wound. "Don't give up, Benjamin. You've come too far. Music is always there for those who love it." He sniffles, nods, and once more vows not to let misfortune drive him away from his goal. A week before the contest, just as Benjamin feels he has perfected his piece, a blend of Beethoven-inspired classical phrasing and jazz improvisation, he receives distressing news. Grandpa Moses has collapsed and been hospitalized. Benjamin rushes to the hospital, heart pounding. He finds his grandfather pale and exhausted in bed. "Grandpa, are you okay?" Moses offers a faint but reassuring grin. "I'm just a little under the weather. Focus on the competition, Ben. Don't worry about me." Benjamin's stomach churns with guilt. His mother, Mrs. Etta, stands nearby, eyes red-rimmed. "You should get some rest before school tomorrow. He'll be all right." All that night, Benjamin barely sleeps. He's torn. Part of him wants to drop everything and stay by his grandfather's side. Another part recalls Grandpa's words about music being his destiny. By morning, he decides to keep preparing. For Grandpa's sake, he will not lose heart. The Multicultural Music Contest takes place in a modest concert hall at the Little Rock Cultural Center. Representatives from various local high schools gather, each group wearing distinct uniforms and carrying instruments. Jefferson High sends 2 acts, their choir and Benjamin Carter. It's his first time on such a large stage. Bright spotlights overhead, rows of seats filled with parents, teachers, local dignitaries. Waiting backstage, Benjamin's pulse races. Miss Wilson stands by him, hand on his shoulder. "Stay calm. Your grandfather, your mother, and all of us are rooting for you. Don't rush. Don't be afraid." Aiden also managed to join as a supporter. "You got this, Ben. Show them what you're made of." Unexpectedly, Ms. Thompson appears in the wings. She's wearing a dark jacket, seeming less severe than usual. She makes no grand gestures, just a brief nod of acknowledgement, as if to say, "Let's see what you can do." Jefferson's choir goes first and performs well. Then the host calls, "Benjamin Carter from Jefferson High." A hush sweeps the auditorium. Benjamin steps forward, blinking under the stage lights. From the corner of his eye, he spots Mrs. Etta in the audience. Next to her, despite his health troubles, sits Grandpa Moses holding a cane, sending him a thumbs up from the middle row. Tears prick Benjamin's eyes. He is not alone. He takes his seat at the polished grand piano, a world apart from the old upright at school. He gently runs his fingers over the smooth keys, takes one final deep breath, and begins. Opening with a classical excerpt reminiscent of Beethoven, Benjamin conveys a serene, disciplined precision. Each note is clear and firm. The judges, 3 in total, lean forward with interest. The crowd remains dead quiet, caught up in the poised melody. Suddenly, Benjamin transitions into jazz, shifting rhythms and chord structures. The music becomes nimble, spontaneous, full of dynamic interplay. He weaves in faster runs, then slows to a sultry groove, letting each chord ring with feeling. Finally, he drifts into a blues coda, a haunting series of notes that reflect longing, struggle, and transcendence, resonating with his own journey in Little Rock. When the last chord fades, there is a pregnant pause. Then the audience bursts into cheering and applause. Even the judges break into smiles. Benjamin's chest heaves with relief and joy. He has poured everything, his fears, his pride, his spirit, into those keys. After every contestant has performed, the judges gather for their verdict. Benjamin waits in tense anticipation, palms sweaty. They announce the first prize overall goes to a large classical ensemble from another school, recognized for their polished and cohesive performance. Benjamin fights a wave of disappointment. Maybe he just can't compete with such professional groups. Then one of the judges adds, "We would also like to present a special award for the most remarkable solo performance, one that blended classical and modern elements with passion and creativity. We are pleased to award this honor to Benjamin Carter from Jefferson High." A spontaneous wave of applause fills the hall. Mrs. Etta weeps openly, and Grandpa Moses stands, leaning on his cane, clapping proudly. Aiden whoops with excitement. Stunned, Benjamin climbs onto the stage to receive a certificate and a modest cash prize. Bowing deeply, he can barely form words to thank the judges. This is the first time he feels publicly and officially recognized for his hard work. Looking into the crowd, he spots Ms. Thompson off to the side. She doesn't clap vigorously like the others, but her expression is complicated, no longer disdainful, as if she's grappling with the realization that she misjudged him all along. Back at Jefferson High, the buzz is strong. Most students are impressed that Benjamin secured a special award at a citywide event. Miss Wilson proudly posts his photo and certificate on the school bulletin board. Even Principal Richard Morgan congratulates him during the morning assembly. Jefferson High is proud to have a student of such talent as Benjamin Carter. Still, some teachers remain skeptical. Mr. Campbell grumbles that it was just a side award. Others question how long the glory might last. Ms. Thompson keeps quiet. She neither praises nor criticizes him publicly. Yet her silence indicates a shift. Perhaps she can no longer dismiss him so easily. Before long, the Little Rock District organizes a charity concert to raise funds for underprivileged families, inviting local schools to perform. Jefferson High is asked to participate, and to everyone's surprise, the administration nominates Benjamin Carter as their representative. They want him to play a central role in the upcoming concert, alongside the usual choir. For Benjamin, it's a chance to shine again, although there's a nagging feeling the school might be using him to boost their own image. Regardless, he accepts, viewing it as another opportunity to prove his worth and contribute to a good cause. Not everyone at Jefferson appreciates Benjamin's success. Bradley Cooper, the star quarterback whose privileges once seemed unshakable, grows increasingly resentful. His position as king of the hallway feels threatened by the new attention on Benjamin, a black student no less. Seething, Bradley decides to put Benjamin in his place. One afternoon, as Benjamin heads home, Bradley and two of his football buddies corner him near the lockers. Bradley sneers. "Heard you've been soaking up the spotlight, piano boy. Feeling high and mighty now?" Benjamin exhales, trying to stay calm. "I don't want any trouble. Step aside." Bradley smirks and gives him a hard shove. "Wrong answer. This is my territory, and we don't need a show-off like you." Benjamin stumbles backward, heart pounding. Aiden rushes over. "Bradley, knock it off." Bradley snarls. "Shut up, you traitor." Then he swings his fist at Benjamin, connecting squarely with his face. Pain explodes behind Benjamin's eyes, and he hits the floor hard. Blood drips from his nose. Aiden yells, "Stop it!" A group of students gather, shouting. Before Bradley can land another blow, Ms. Thompson suddenly appears, shouting, "Enough! Bradley Cooper, stop right there!" Everything halts. Ms. Thompson marches up, furious. "What do you think you're doing? Get to the principal's office, both of you now." Benjamin, dazed, is helped up by Aiden. Bradley scowls but eventually follows Ms. Thompson. In the principal's office, the incident results in a disciplinary hearing. To the shock of many, Bradley receives a 2-game suspension, unheard of for a prized athlete. Benjamin gets a mild reprimand but is recognized as the victim. The school is abuzz. For the first time, someone like Bradley faces real consequences for attacking a black student. The culture at Jefferson High may be starting to crack. Despite bruises on his face, Benjamin insists on performing at the upcoming charity concert. The event is set at a grand old church downtown, its tall stained glass windows glowing in the afternoon light, wooden pews stretching in rows. Subtle organ music plays as people file in, ready to donate to a worthy cause. A coordinator steps up to the pulpit. "We have performances from several high schools this evening. Representing Jefferson High, please welcome Benjamin Carter at the piano." Benjamin approaches the platform, heart fluttering. He spots Ms. Thompson seated alongside other Jefferson teachers. This time she meets his gaze. Her expression less icy, she gives a short approving nod. At the church's grand piano, aged but still resonant, Benjamin has chosen a gospel-inspired jazz piece. It begins softly, evoking reverence, but soon gathers momentum, shifting into a lively gospel jazz fusion, reminiscent of the spiritual traditions that help sustain African American communities through adversity. As the final flourish echoes off the vaulted ceiling, a swell of applause erupts. Some audience members dab at their eyes. The performance is heartfelt, a testament to hope and unity beyond race. Benjamin turns and sees Ms. Thompson on her feet, clapping along with the rest of the teachers. There's genuine emotion on her face. Prejudice dies hard, but talent and sincerity can indeed puncture its defenses. Benjamin feels a stirring sense of validation. The charity concert garners positive reviews. The organizers send a letter of gratitude to Jefferson High, praising Benjamin's moving, uplifting performance. The local newspaper devotes a short article to the concert, with a special mention of Benjamin's piano solo. Within school corridors, more students greet him with admiration. Even those who once mocked him express curiosity, asking about jazz techniques or the history behind certain songs. Bradley remains a menacing presence, but his status has diminished. With his suspension and the team's resulting losses, he's no longer as celebrated as before. Meanwhile, Ms. Thompson begins showing more fairness toward Benjamin in class. She calls on him for answers just as often as she calls on others and occasionally nods her approval of his insights. One afternoon, she even asks him to stay after class. Benjamin stands by her desk, uncertain. She clears her throat. "I wanted to say, I appreciate your hard work lately. Also, I need to put together some new teaching materials about African Americans' contributions during the Civil War. I wondered if you'd help me select key figures and events for a classroom project." Stunned, Benjamin nods. For the first time, Ms. Thompson has extended a real invitation to collaborate. However small that gesture may seem, It's a tangible acknowledgement that he can contribute legitimately to the class and to her curriculum. Benjamin's story spreads through the Black community in Little Rock, a city famous for its role in civil rights history. Even a modest victory for one young musician carries weight in a place where the fight for equality remains fresh in collective memory. Grandpa Moses is still in fragile health but recovering. Whenever Benjamin visits, Moses clasps his hand. "I'm so proud of you, son. You've taken a giant stride, one I always dreamt about when I was your age, but never quite managed." Benjamin knows his journey has only begun. He still faces discrimination and skepticism, but at least he's broken free from some of the shadows at Jefferson High. He starts thinking about his future in music, perhaps applying to an arts conservatory or vying for scholarships. With a newly lit sense of purpose, he can see beyond the limitations once placed on him. Hayden continues being a steadfast companion, sometimes joining him for casual jam sessions that merge piano with guitar, forging an unusual rock-blues hybrid. In the halls of Jefferson High, Benjamin Carter is no longer the invisible black kid. His life has diverged onto a new path. Some weeks pass. One afternoon, Benjamin receives great news. Grandpa Moses has been cleared by doctors to go home. Overjoyed, Benjamin rushes to his grandfather's small house, finding him resting on the porch, gazing at the yard. "Hey, Grandpa, you're out of the hospital." Moses leans on his cane. "Yes, I'm glad to be home. Help me inside, would you? I want to see my piano." Benjamin gently supports him, guiding him to the upright. Moses eases onto the piano bench and lifts the lid. "Play with me, Ben, just like old times." They begin a cheerful jazz duet. Warm notes fill the house, drifting out the window into the quiet Little Rock afternoon. Late sunlight filters through worn curtains, illuminating the keys in soft gold. For Benjamin, this moment encapsulates all that he's learned. That music can serve as both a shield and a bridge, uniting him with those who once doubted him. He reflects that prejudice still exists, but the power of authentic passion and perseverance can erode even the toughest barriers. Through music, or any genuine talent, one can rise above pettiness and prove that color does not define worth. And that's the enduring lesson. Never let someone else's narrow vision determine your potential. Though discrimination may run deep, sincere effort and skill have a way of changing minds, sometimes slowly, but powerfully. Benjamin Carter's story does not end here. He will keep playing, keep growing, keep fighting for respect. His final chord at Jefferson High is only the first measure in a greater symphony of possibilities.